Chazaq. That was good, Rabbi. Yeah, this is definitely a moment of clarity, right? It's like a full circle moment. The Rabbi and I was learning a while back here in New York. But the most important thing that I think that I was able to accomplish when I was, 12 years old or so, my mom mentioned to me that we should reconnect with the laws of Moses, right? And so at that time, I was more so trying to figure out what that meant. So it took me on this path of learning and trying to figure this out. And that path brought me to Judaism, right? I met a rabbi when I was in my 20s. We started learning together, we started building, we started talking, I started going to Shirim, I started going to Pesach Seders and all these things, and it became a moment of clarity, a moment of reconnection. I feel like my neshama was finding what it was always searching for. I always tell my guys that I learn with, my young guys, all right, they try to figure out how to keep, they Torah intellect and also want to have fun. I always say you gotta have your golden lane, right? It's important to have a golden lane. We have the foundation of the Torah, which we know the Torah means instructions. So we have our instructions and our manual, right? You can't build anything without having a manual or your instructions. So we have our instructions that it's required for us to live a life according to connecting with the Creator, connecting with God, connecting with the universe, connecting with all the elements that God presents to us, right? And in order for that to happen, you have to live according to these instructions. And so, but yet while you're living with this Torah, these instructions, you're still able to have fun. You're still able to enjoy your life and be normal, to be to have fun. And so for me, that's always kind of been my approach to Judaism, to Torah, to living accordingly, is finding my golden lane that allows me to not deviate from the instructions, the Torah, but yet I still have fun within those elements. So therefore, there's stories of when I was playing with the Knicks, for an example, and I would have my Siddur with me, and we travel on road trips. And I would be reading my Siddur, just learning about the Siddur, the order of prayer, what is happening, how do I read, can I translate? At the same time, I had a Hebrew tutor who was teaching me on the side, and my teammates might have thought, like, what's Amar'e learning? Like, what's going on? This guy's learning Hebrew back there. He has a Siddur with these languages inside of it. What's going on? Yom Kippur comes around, he's not drinking water. It's during training camp. He's like running these sprints, but the trainers are around him and just making sure he doesn't pass out. Like, and all these things was happening while I was playing for the Knicks. And I was very somewhat secretive about it because I was still learning, and I was still taking upon my approach to understand exactly what I was learning. And the rabbis and I would sit down, we'd talk, we'd learn for hours, and no one would have a clue about it, right? I'll go and play against the Celtics, score 41 points, and then that night I'm with the rabbis learning, right? And this was happening my entire time. And when I went to Israel to go visit, I visited Israel in 2010 actually, and once I arrived in Israel, I felt like I had a complete connection. I felt like this was home. I felt it right away. I had no other type of like objection except for just, this is home. I felt it like right away. I was speaking earlier about that. Like when you get to Israel, you go to Jerusalem, you feel like this is home. It's like no other feeling. And so when I finished my time playing with the Knicks, and I went to Miami and played my final year with the Miami Heat, I wanted to go over Israel and continue to go home and also to learn. So I took my career over to Israel. I played from Hapoel Yerushalayim, and then I also went to Yeshiva. I went to Orsameach. And so even then now, I'm faced with another challenge, right? Because my teammates didn't quite understand what was happening there. Because they see I wake up 6 in the morning, I'm going to daven, I'm going to Yeshiva for an hour for a shiur, then I'm going to get a coffee, then I'm in the weight room training like a rock star, right? I'm in the weight room early, training hard, and then I get to practice, and and I have all this energy, and I'm like flying through the air and all these things. And then once practice over, I'm back in yeshiva. And then now they're starting to realize, like, well, something's happening here. He don't want to hang out with us. He's not going out to party with us. He's only going to kosher restaurants. And my teammates start to understand exactly the path that I was on. And what I was able to accomplish, and what I said earlier about this, is that having that golden lane. And I think a lot of times when we have the ideal of what that means, everyone has their own personal relationship with Hashem, right? Hashem deals with you on your level that you are able to receive the information from God, right? So everybody has their own relationship. So I can't judge anyone for what they're doing and what they're not doing, because you have your own journey, your own path. At the end of the day, Hashem loves you, and so for me, I was able to just kind of take that notion and go for it. And so, with understanding this week's parsha, right? We see that Yosef Sadik had passed away, and then also the Bnei Israel, the 12 tribes also passed away, and their generations have passed away. And we see that Pharaoh didn't know Yosef Sadik, and he wanted to inflict more pressure on Bnei Israel and apply more pressure on them. And the interesting part about this week's parsha is that, as we see, when Moshe Rabbeinu went back to Mitzrayim to try to convince the people not, that these promises are going to happen, these miracles are going to happen, but yet Pharaoh applied more pressure. He's like, all right, well, we're going to make it harder for you now. We're going to, turn the heat up a bit, for lack of a better term, right? And so, and Moshe Rabbeinu went back to Hashem like, listen, what's happening? And what I understood from that is that whenever there's more affliction, whenever there's more pressure, whenever there's more, hatred toward us, we have to have the faith, the emunah, the bitukon, to know that Hashem is always with us, no matter what. And inside our heart, we know who we are. We know the halakot. We know the laws that we're dealing with. We know the mitzvot that we're holding by. We have our golden lane. We understand the Torah from an intellectual level. And that's going to keep us away from any hurt, harm, or any danger, right? And so with that being said, Rabbi, I want to thank you for allowing me to share a few words. I'm not sure if there's a Q&A moment or anyone has any questions for me, but we could definitely, ask some questions. I'm here to answer if you have any.
Guys, don't be shy, guys.
Where are you going to be for Shabbos?
I'll be in Brooklyn.
Oh.
I will be in Brooklyn for Shabbos.
The hardest player you ever had to guard?
The hardest player I ever had to guard?
He was on his team.
He never
Outside of
played,
Shaq,
me,
right?
so.
We can't use Shaq. Shaq was like impossible to guard. LeBron James. LeBron was the hardest to guard, for sure.
What do they say about your conversion? How do they feel about Judaism?
How did they feel about me going to Judaism? They saw it the entire way. Even before I finalized my conversion, I was having people over for Shabbat and didn't quite know how to keep Shabbat. But just from my learnings, I was like inviting people over. Come over Friday night, let's have a meal, Shabbat Shalom. And I wasn't even sure what that even meant. But I was on that path of learning and trying to figure it out. But I was open to, like to bring people over and hang out. But yeah, that was cool. They saw my siddur, they saw my learnings, they saw my when I talked to them, what I was saying. All my teammates was like, I knew he was going to go that route, So that's how it was.
Who's the best teammate you ever played with?
The best teammate I would play with? The best teammate I played with? Steve Nash.
Player or the person?
As a player. And also as a person. Nash was a very good, cool guy. Yeah, exactly. So both.
Do you think doing all the extra learning and other things made it more difficult for you because you were spending more time, or made it easier for you to succeed professionally because you had more meaning or kind of had more focus?
The learning made it easier for me. I was able to have a sense of calmness when I played, right, from the learning. I had a sense of like, I don't know, tranquility when I played because of the learnings. And I slowly start to apply my learnings within not only my neshama, but inside of my mind and cultivating those thoughts and these things. And it was helping me have freedom and fun and joy with the game while I played.
How's your back?
My back's stronger than ever.
What's a greater high? Hitting a buzzer shot or learning a nice piece of Chumash or Gemara? What do you feel?
That's good. That is good.
He's the chairman of the board for a reason.
I think hitting a buzzer shot is like, it's almost as if like when I went through my conversion process, right? When I went through my reconnecting process, I like to call it. It was a similar feeling because I went through my reconnection with in B'nai Brak, and you go inside the Beit Din, is like 8 rabbis with the beards as long as rabbis here is and with the hard questions to ask, and you got to be ready for it. But that was also, once I passed it, it felt like a buzzer beater shot.
You said that
Was thrilled.
You said that at 12 years old, your mother was who inspired you to kind of like go back to the roots, to the learnings of Moses. Was there were you guys raised in a household that was very religious or Seventh-day Adventist or something? Why the books of Moses? Why not other books, and why specifically that?
Yeah, well, I was raised in a very religious household. My mom would pray. She was the type of woman that prays and cries when she prays, right? And so it was just, I guess, her connection with her prayers and how she dealt with God and her relationships. And she wanted to give it over to me and my brother. And I was the one that took the information and wanted to learn about it. That's how it started.
Was there like a tipping point, a moment where, like, why 12? Why not 8 or 10 or 16 or 20? Why that specific age?
I have no idea. You gotta ask her that question. I think my brother was 8. I was 11 or 12 or so, somewhere around there.
I think part of the reason why I'm asking is because even for people who are born Jewish and are not really religious growing up, a lot of them become more religious when a parent passes away or something like that, where they have to, pray, Shiva, say Kaddish 3 times a day. I think that's one of the defining moments in their lives of why they become more religious. I was curious as to if there was something similar in your mother's life at your age of 12 that may have led to something like that. But if you've never asked her, I understand.
Yeah, no, I think I became more religious when I moved to Israel. When I first got into Judaism, I had a lot of questions, and I was very curious, and I was very humble, and I didn't take any preconceived notions when I got into Judaism. And so when I started learning, I think that was a turning point for me, is that I start understanding what I'm learning. I start living to what I'm learning. And they say that the learning, when you apply the learning, that's the wisdom, right? And so that's how I approached my learnings, and that was a turning point for me.
One final thing, just a statement. I think being a fan of the game and being a fan of you and watching your game progress from Phoenix to the Knicks and just in general from start to end, and how you said where you played with a certain context as a fan. You were a ferocious, starting out you were a ferocious animal, and then towards the end you were like poetry in motion. So I think that as fans we noticed that change in your game as well. So
Yeah, thank you.
What was the reaction you got from your family, and how was the acceptance, and what's the man? Aside from that, we're a minority, we have a lot of anti-Semitism, but you're a double minority. So, what was the reaction you got from the Jewish community when you came back, and your family, and from what's the man?
Yeah, I think for me, for my family, on my father's side of the family are all Christians, basically. And my uncle was a pastor in Florida. And when he saw my learnings and he saw my dedication, this was maybe a month or 2 months or so before he passed away, he was like, nephew, what you're learning is right. And that was a very strong moment for me because I was doing it because I felt the urge to. I wasn't doing it for like any verifications or anything. And so my uncle, when he mentioned that to me, he was very sincere about it. And then shortly after, he passed away. I think the learning of Or Sameach, when I got to Or Sameach, the rabbis saw my dedication to Torah, and they saw that I was really eager to learn, and they were eager to teach. Teach how to read the Siddur. We had private times with reading the Siddur. That's not a part of the rabbi's normal day of work, and the questions I would ask, they see I'm there with a notepad and pencil and pen out and highlighters and these things. And so it was a beautiful connection with the rabbis of Or Sameach. There's always been, people that don't quite understand the journey. And I understand their views because at times when I first got into Judaism, I didn't quite understand the journey. But I had a humble approach to my particular way of learning. But over time, as they see the learning, they see the benefits of these things, and then hopefully that'll help kind of weave off some of the anti-Semitic slurs or attitudes.
Last question, guys. Last question. Yes.
Which rabbi in Or Sameach inspired you to grow and grow and grow? Which rabbi specifically in Or Sameach?
Man, all of them.
Give me 1, 2, 3 names, please.
I mean, Rabbi Kaplan teaches the parsha each week. Rabbi Metzelon teaches the Gemara. Rosh Hashiva Schiller always gives us, motivation. Rabbi Gaffin, Or Sameach, Breitowitz also, exactly. Rabbi Breitowitz is always there to give over information and help us with what it takes to be mentally prepared for this new way of living, right? Or Sameach's great.
We're going to send him to Or Sameach, B'ezras Hashem.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I was there already.
Okay. Okay, beautiful.
Okay.
Amazing. Wow.